At Rubber Band, we empower each other through positivity, kindness, and practical advice. Join a community of thousands of peers who understand the unique challenges you face. Rubber Band. Company agnostic, low ego, high empathy, always supportive.
We have countless positions to advertise. Our career site is less than inspiring. We need to get our new EVP out to market, and we have to start building our employee advocacy program.
That's a lot to do and only one of me.
Well, that's why I've just brought in Video My Job. It's the content creation platform that talent acquisition and employer branding experts like yourself need.
Wow.
Tell your story with video. Attract talent and get better hires with Video My Job.
Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Rubber Band podcast, where I am joined by guest Renee Sturtevant. Now, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I live and work on, the Wadawurrung and Dja Dja Wurrung people. I recognise their continuing connection to the land and waterways. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I would like to extend this to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome to the Rubber Band podcast. Renee, how you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. Thanks for having me today.
We've got a terrible connection. I'm gonna have to pause it. Hang on. And we are live. Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Rubber Band podcast, where I am joined by special guest Renee Sturtevant. Now, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I live and work on, the Wadawurrung and Dja Dja Wurrung people. I recognise their continuing connection to the land and waterways. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I would like to extend this to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome to the Rubber Band podcast. Renee, how are you?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to get to know you, and always love having these episodes with members of the Rubber Band community and hearing all about your experience and all about your journey. So, Renee, thank you for joining us on this very windy day. Are you joining from Melbourne as well today?
I certainly am. I'm joining from Glen Iris today.
Okay, and is your house blowing away?
A little bit, yeah. The trees are definitely moving outside.
Totally. Well, what I'm happy about is that we're battling through the wind and we've got a good connection. So let's kick off. And I always think the best place to start, Renee, is to hear about your background. And I want to go back to your childhood. Did you grow up in Glen Iris? Is that where you were originally from?
No, I grew up in Greensborough, northern suburbs of Melbourne.
Excellent. And were you only child, one of many? Tell me about your childhood.
I'm one of two kids. So my sister, Brooke, she's also in sort of that HR world. She works in workplace relations. She loves it. We're very different, I guess, in what we do for work. But, we were two kids out in the northern suburbs.
Well, that experience that your sister has would come in very handy in your line of work, I can imagine. So I've got a close friend in workplace relations and she hears from me regularly. So that's hilarious. Well, what I'd really love to do now is kind of talk about your journey and moving into our industry. What was your very first job? Was it while you were in high school, or tell me about that?
Yeah, look, I started my first job, I guess, when I was 14 and 9 months. I worked in a deli at Greensborough Plaza. I was paid cash. There weren't really OH&S policies and procedures in place. So I've got the scars on my fingers to show that.
Really? You got injured?
Using a meat slice is not a can be a bit tricky, sort of when you're that age. So, my first gig was definitely, probably not where I wanted to end up eventually. I did some work at a cinema at the Plaza as well, but, that's kind of where I started. And
Excellent, excellent. And you've got the scars to prove it, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, too funny. And what were the intentions, I suppose, when you were in high school? Like, where did you, at that stage in your life, want to take your career? Were you looking at moving into tertiary education and doing some studies? Or what was the childhood dream in terms of where you would be today?
I had no idea really what I wanted to be when I grew up. For a while it might have been childcare, it might have been teaching. When I was in year 12, I think I ended up applying for teaching, psychology, nursing and human movement, whatever that was at the time. But one thing I do remember, from our teachers back then was that, the messaging was sort of, if you didn't go to university, you really weren't going to amount to anything. So there was a lot of pressure to go to university, even if, that's not sort of what you were thinking or you were that way inclined. So, yeah, I ended up I got offered nursing at VU, and I did that for 6 months, but I hated it. I really did.
What was it that you didn't enjoy?
There was a lot of politics in nursing at the time, and I think, what they also did in the first 6 months, you sort of dissected everything and anything, and I think you kind of weeded out those people who weren't going to make it. So, when you're doing that sort of thing, there was a lot of politics going on. It just wasn't for me. I think I know a lot of nurses, and I've got so much respect for them, but I wasn't cut out for it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine myself dissecting anything either. So I can relate to that. So after that 6 months, what happened from there? Did you move into the workforce? Where did you go from there?
I did a couple of different jobs after that. I worked at another cinema sort of full-time for a little while. I worked at a stockbroking firm in the city, inputting checks into their clients' accounts, their dividends. It was incredibly boring, but it was something that, paid the bills. But I guess, when I think about the job that probably got me to where I am today, I think about the job I did at table game scheduling at Crown.
Oh.
Yeah. So this was a job that a recruiter reached out to me and said, I've got this job. You don't need the experience. They'll fully train you in everything, but you just need to have the right attitude and you need to be prepared to be working shift work.
Right. Okay. And what was it? What did it mean exactly? Like, it all sounds very glamorous, right? But what was it?
Table game scheduling at the time there was about 3,000 employees that worked in the table games area at the casino, and we were doing their rosters. So if you think about the casino, it's open sort of 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Pretty big job. I think when I was there, and it's probably the same today, the casino only closed for 3 mornings a year between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. So that's Christmas Day, Good Friday, and Anzac Day.
Right. So it was 24/7. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So around that, we were sort of putting the rosters together. So it was very much skill-based. So if it was, you're rostering for a roulette table, they had to have roulette training. Depending on where they were in the casino, some people were rated higher and they could work in the VIP areas. So you were doing the whole schedule for the day shift or the night shift or the morning shift. So it was a really interesting job. And at that time, I still sort of hadn't really worked out what I wanted to do. But doing that for a while and, inputting annual leave, taking sick leave, taking calls for people calling in sick, I kind of moved and thought maybe I could make a job out of this, or there's a job that, becomes of it.
So how did that all come about? Because that naturally, as you said, led you into the HR industry. So what made you decide that HR was the career path for you? And talk me through that journey.
I did a bit of research and sort of thought, well, what sort of skills that I'm learning here could I do somewhere else? And I had a look at some courses, and I ended up doing my Cert 4 in Business and Human Resource Management was Northern Melbourne Institute of TAFE at the time. It's now Melbourne Polytechnic, so this was some time ago.
Yeah.
So I did that, got to learn all the sort of ins and outs of HR, and it was in a TAFE setting, so it was a little bit different to university. So we're still doing assessments and that sort of thing, but I got to sort of build a little network, I guess, as I was going through TAFE, because I was working full-time and then studying part-time. So that was a couple of nights a week I'd go to TAFE. So working at the casino and doing that shift work allowed me to sort of do an early shift on those days or have my RDOs on those days. So, yeah, it kind of worked to be able to go to TAFE and work, and, yeah,
Okay.
it changed my life.
Wow. And how long did the study go for if you were studying human resources part-time while working? Like, how long was that period of your life?
Well, it was a couple of years I think it took me to do my Cert 4. Then I did my diploma. I really enjoyed what I was doing, and then thought, all right, I'm going to take it to the next level, and did the diploma. So, yeah, a couple of years for both of those. And I guess while I was at the casino at that time, I got an opportunity to do a secondment into human resources as a coordinator.
Tell me about that.
So it was a secondment that became available, and I guess because I had the study and, there were some really great mentors that I was able to work with at Crown. I worked in the table games, sorry, not the table games, it was hotels and services. So at the time there was only 2 hotels. It was Crown Towers and Crown Promenade, and then services was maintenance and security.
Wow, okay.
So, it was...
And that's a secondment opened it up. Yeah, right. So from there, where did you go from that secondment into the HR coordinator role? Tell me where that led you to.
Well, at the end of the secondment, because it was a parental leave one, at the end of it, they sort of said, look, you can go back to table game scheduling. But by then I'd had some qualifications, I'd had some experience, and I went, nah, now it's time for me to go out into the big bad world and start my HR journey. So just over 6 years at Crown, and then I kind of went out and did some hospitality work out at Fed Square for a while. I went into retail. I worked at Australian Discount Retail. Once again, I don't think they exist anymore, but they were the Warehouse and Go Low Crazy Clarks.
Yeah. I remember Go Low. I remember Crazy Clarks. Yeah. I can remember buying all the unauthorized CDs back in the 90s from Go Low.
That's right.
Too funny. So thinking about that, I mean, it seems like it was a really organic, natural journey for you to move into HR, because there were just these little moments that were happening that kind of drew you into the industry. When you reflect back, has the reality of the HR industry met what your early expectations were?
I think so. I think HR's come a long way from when I started out. I think, it used to be when you told people you worked in HR, it's sort of like, oh, yeah, you hire and fire people. And it's like, well, I do a lot more than that. But I think these days we talk about business partnering. We talk about that stakeholder management, that engagement, and, that having that commercial head to be able to influence different situations in the workplace. So for me, I think that organic transition that, where HR is today, it excites me that that's where we came from, or that's where I came from at a time. It was so different.
And it was very, back in the day, very administrative, right? And you're right, we've become those true partners for the business, and we really are. You can't have an organisation without HR, right? Like it's so important, because I think organisations have realised that people are the core of their success. So that natural transition of what the industry brand has changed, and I think that's really powerful. And I've been around a long time, right? I've been around longer than you, I think, just by looking at the color of my hair. But it's exciting, and I think where are we going next, right? Like where will the industry be in 5 to 10 years with everything that's going on with AI? And it's going to be an interesting journey. What do you think?
Yeah, look, and I think one of my big passion places is that DE&I space. So I think, for me, where we've come with a lot of those sorts of things when we're talking about reconciliation action planning, the LGBTQIA plus, what we're able to do with inclusivity and that sort of thing. To me, that's one of the most exciting parts of I guess, where HR can make a difference, really. So I think, back in the day, we talk about sort of, I think you and I are very similar vintage, but, these weren't things that were talked about or considered, and they weren't particularly important at the time. But for me, I'm lucky enough to be starting a new job soon, and the organisation I'm going to really values that diversity space, and they actually call it DEI and B, so they add belonging onto it now. So to me, this is where we're going. We're actually, taking what we have learnt along the way, but we're just taking it further, and we're really able to get the most out of it.
And look, congratulations. I have to say congratulations, because you've had, like many of us in the industry, a bit of a journey job seeking as well. So I'm absolutely delighted to hear that you found that dream job. How did that all come about? When did things change a little bit for you? Because I know, just like me, it took me a while to get the job that I'm in as well, and it was a roller coaster. Tell me, how did it all come about?
Yeah, look, I left my last job in about March of this year. So, I've got to take a dream holiday. I went overseas for 4 weeks, but job hunting recently has been real hard work. It's been like nothing I've ever seen before, and it's sort of, just the availability of roles, roles being sort of advertised but then being pulled or changed, or and so the competition has been fierce because there has been a lot more job seekers than jobs out there. So it's taken a while to find the right job. I think Eden Rubber Band Network came about at a time when I really needed it. I saw one of your posts on LinkedIn, and it was a time where, you're getting the rejections, or, the roles just aren't there. And, finding a different communities really changed the way that I was thinking about things. And, your community that you've built is, having jobs out there, having people just having different conversations that aren't just apply through Seek or LinkedIn and then you may or may not hear back. But these are real people that have jobs available, or might know someone who's got a role, or, you put yourself out there and say, hey, this is me, I've got this many years experience and this is what I can do. So I think that was a real turning point for me. And I think another thing I look back on is networks. So there's been a number of people I've had in my network who've been in a similar position. So, those networks, you've got to work at your networks to have some really good ones around you. But I think having a really strong supportive network is something that, will help. But it's also sort of going, for me, it was important to have my values aligning with the next role and the next organisation, and they do. Incredibly, I'm very lucky, but that's a really big thing for me, with culture, values, alignment in that space.
And I'm absolutely thrilled to hear the value that you found from Rubber Band, but also thrilled that you're able to share that your journey changed and things changed, and you did find that right role for you that was aligned with your values and culture and your passion for diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging, right? And I think it's really important for anyone out there that's listening that is going through what so many of us have been through when it comes to job seeking, and those frustrations that we've got the stories, we got to the end of it. There was light at the end of our tunnel, and to be resilient and to keep going. And you're absolutely right. Continue to network and continue to talk to real human beings, because there's nothing more deflating than the auto rejection responses over and over and over, and I still have nightmares about it. So it's a really great story to share with our listeners. And I just want to return now back to your career, and what I'd really love to know, Renee, you've got such amazing experience. I'd love for you to share some of the biggest lessons that you've learned over the years.
Yeah, look, for me, I think, this job-seeking journey, particularly this one, I think, just about being kind and really looking into some of the different things that are going on in other people's lives, because, we're humans at the end of the day. And I think, I've dealt with a lot of different case management or things around people might be, they might be running late for work, but there might be a bigger story in the background that, we haven't looked at. So for me, I think it's really just, being able to look beyond the surface and really understanding people. We've all got stuff going on in our lives, and there's, we're more than just our job or just our job title. So, for me, it's kindness and just going that below that surface level.
Mm. And look, it's really funny. I think kindness is really important. And if I reflect back on my career as well, and I look at my first agency role, I kind of have a few little regrets there. I was a bit gossipy. I wasn't always kind to candidates. I was a bit of a dick, really. When I wasn't extreme or anything, but I wouldn't have said that I'm the kind man that I am today. And I think we can change. And I think it's really great to highlight that, particularly in industries like recruitment, which a lot of our rubber band members are from, or from the specialised recruitment side, and a lot of people from agency, is that we don't compete with each other, and we're there to support each other, and we're there to be kind to each other, because we all go on a journey. This is a tough gig, right? Whether it's recruitment, talent acquisition, human resources, workplace relations, like your sister, whatever area we specialize in, right? It's a tough gig, and we've got to come together. We've got to bond. We've got to form that community, and we've got to be kind to each other. So it's never too late to do that. And
That's right.
Right. Like I truly believe that. And, you talk about kindness, and, you were mentioning to me, with some people that you worked with recently on your job search, and you mentioned an agency and a particular recruitment agent that you wanted to call out today. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, there's been a number of experiences I've had in this job seeking journey, and I'm not going to call out names. That wouldn't be fair. But, there's been times where I guess one recruiter, that I had trusted and wanted to get into an industry that really wasn't something I had done before. And, these days trying to get into another industry, even with transferable skills, is quite difficult because people are quite specific on sort of what they're looking for. But, I had disclosed that someone close to me had worked in a similar sort of industry, and that recruiter ended up sort of reaching out to that person very close to me to sort of say, hey, I've got this job. That person was the first one to call out and say, hey, I know someone who could do that, but it's like, oh, no, we want someone with industry experience. So, and I think, people do talk and people connect on these sorts of things. So, I think just working with integrity, kindness, these are really important things. There was another recruiter I worked with that put me forward for a job where the CEO that was interviewing me was 25 minutes late and, took a call during the interview. And, there was a number of things that were just hideous. But you sort of go, well, these are the people that you're representing as well. So, I mean, I know times are tough and we can't always, choose who we want to work with, but where you can, I think it's really important for your reputation and your relationships that, you're very transparent when it comes to these sorts of things and taking on the feedback that you might be getting from your candidates.
Absolutely. Because as candidates, we're open to feedback. Right.
Yeah.
And we talk as an industry how important it is to provide that feedback and for the candidates to accept that feedback. But likewise, the candidate needs to provide feedback to you, and you need to welcome that as well, whether it's your service or whether it's the client that you're working for or the hiring manager that's interviewed. I think feedback's key in our industry, and it helps us evolve as we're talking about where HR was in the past and where HR is now. If we can continue to strive to be better, feedback is key to that. I completely agree. Yeah. So what are you, this can be about life, this can be about work, this can be about both. What are you most passionate about?
It is definitely that DE&I space. And, for me, what I do outside of work, I've had a fair bit of time off recently. I've been able to do some study to better myself. I've recently been accepted on a not-for-profit community board, which
Great.
is really cool. I did my boardroom boot camp while I was, having my time out, and got this gig. So being able to contribute to community is really important to me. I do a bit of work in my personal time with the LGBTQIA plus community, with Community Rainbow Angels, and there's lots of things I think that are going to fill your cup. So you've just got to find out what that is. So, for me, it's kind of that volunteering and that contributing to the communities around me. There's so many great things that you can do that don't take up much time or money or anything like that. So, I think it's just, for me, I'm passionate about leaving the planet in a better place than I found it. And particularly for, I think of my niece and even my best friend's kids. I consider them my nieces and nephews, and I just want them to be able to be whatever they want to be, love who they want to love, and, just have all the opportunities in front of them to be able to do whatever they want. So my job now is to, try and leave the planet in a better place than I found it, and make sure that they get what they need.
Oh, it is so beautiful. And speaking of beautiful, I mean, Community Rainbow Angels is an amazing initiative, and I think it would be really great if you could maybe share with the audience the work that Community Rainbow Angels do. And, I think it would be wonderful, because a lot of people maybe haven't heard of it.
Well, Community Rainbow Angels, we turn up to different events, usually when it coincides with young people. So we do a lot of work with -18, who are based out of the Pride Centre. That they ran the queer formal this year out of the NGV, and there was a purple party just on the weekend gone at the Pride Centre for Wear It Purple Day, which is this Friday. So we get to wear some beautiful coloured wings, and the idea is to just bring joy and spread joy, because there's always going to be people there that don't agree with, I guess, some of these parties for queer kids, but we're there to make sure that they get a safe entrance into the building and have a damn good time. It brings tears to my eyes, I think, when I see the parents there, they're giving their kids big hugs and sending them into these parties. And, on the one on the weekend, we get the dads turning around and just saying thank you, and their heartfelt thank yous for us being there. It's just incredible.
It is. And as reflecting on my journey when I was queer youth, and nothing like that really existed. I mean, it was really challenging. And I think the work that so many groups, you called out -18, you called out, the Community Angels. I mean, there's so much amazing work that goes on that really helps kids. And I think it's absolutely wonderful. So, Renee, thank you for the work that you do. Just in general, I'm really loving talking to you today. And what, again, really excites me is that you have landed that dream role that is aligned with your values and with your passions. And you probably can't disclose where you're going, but can you tell us a little bit about the work that you're going to be doing and the new opportunity that you have secured?
Look, it's a bit new at the moment, and I think I'll leave the announcement for a later date. But look, it's completely out of retail. So, for me, I'm, going to be taking a step aside. My background is really highly retail and hospitality focused, and I've really made a clear decision to sort of move out of that. It's probably a bit of a comfort zone too, when you stay in the same sort of industry. So I'm really excited to be going with another organisation in a completely different industry, and that is so open to that DE&I and B space. Watch this space.
Watch this space. Everyone just jump on and follow Renee, because we're all dying to know where you're going, right? Jump on LinkedIn, connection request. Renee promises she'll accept. So we're almost out of time, and I'd really love to end today really with some advice. So finally, what advice would you give to anyone out there who is either working in HR at the moment, or perhaps even considering like we did back in the day, considering moving into the HR industry?
Yeah, look, I would say go for it. HR's it's an incredibly rewarding space, in that TA space. If you can, find those perfect candidates and place them into a role and, see people succeed, it's, one of the best things you could do. But, look, it's not always an easy role, particularly in HR. We're dealing with some pretty heavy things a lot of the time. You're doing some performance management or improvement type work. So for me, it's really building your networks. And having people around you to support you. I remember when I was very new into HR, I used to sort of shut myself off from the world on the weekend and go, hey, I can't talk to anybody else at the end of the week. I've dealt with everyone else's problems. But that was a really unhealthy way to deal with things. And I think, with Renee Brown's work, I've completely changed my ways. And, as someone who, I call myself a bit of an introverted extrovert, because I don't directly go and say, hi, how are you? But, when I'm in my element and in my work and around people that I trust, you see the best of me. But I think, networks need to be worked at. And, I think, you need to put yourself out there, join different networking communities, go to the updates through some of the recruiters and some of the different organisations that, have these different things around legislation updates or, there's lots of organisations doing some great stuff that they want to talk about in that DE&IB space. Yeah, put yourself out there, join groups on LinkedIn, Rubber Band, and that way you build that camaraderie. You've got people that you can sort of, lean on. You've got people that you can go, hey, I'm working on this policy. What have you done in that space?
Yeah.
There's so much that can be brought from a network that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just so important, but work at your networks. And, and when you are in that point where you might be looking for a job or looking for your next adventure, you want to be able to reach out to people that, will be able to support you in that. So, but once you get a job, don't drop all those networks to sort of go, I don't need you anymore, because you will someday. Making sure that you just nurture your networks.
Yeah. And that's great advice, Renee. And listeners out there, and I'm quite similar to you, Renee. I sometimes call myself an introvert, sometimes call myself an extrovert, and I bounce between the two on a daily basis. In fact, on an hourly basis. It depends on the environment, right? But anyone out there listening that, maybe is feeling a little bit anxious about, networking or joining community groups, there is so much value with the online groups as well. You don't need to be putting yourself out there in a room full of people. I know that I struggle with that, but I've been able to find groups online and balance that with other things when I do feel comfortable in person. So there's so much out there. Put yourself out there, get to know as many people as you can. I couldn't agree more. Renee, it has been an absolute delight catching up with you today, and I cannot wait to see your LinkedIn update very soon. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much, Renee. Take care.